Animal Well released earlier this year, and alongside being a true masterpiece of game design, is a game that doesn't so much demand perfection as it does politely request it. Once you're dropped into the titular Animal Well, your objective is the same as it is in any other game: get to the end. You can explore the map in any direction that you please. You will find various items, complete puzzles, and beat a number of bosses to open up a final secret area. Once you descend and get past this area full of some of the most challenging puzzles the game has to offer, you'll roll credits and watch the fireworks. At this point, you've beaten the game, and yet you've not completed it. You can choose to stop playing the game right here and be happy with your experience, or you can instead wait for the credits to roll, walk to the right, go through a house, and drop through to the very bottom of the map and back into the top of the well. This layer contains more puzzles and items than the first, allowing you to explore the same map in new ways. Only after you search every corner and collect every egg can you finally see the true ending. And yet at this point, you may have completed the game, but there's still a strong chance it's not been perfected. Certain achievements are entirely missable, meaning even a full run where you seemingly do everything, there can still be more to clean up later. When to be done with a game is a question that I know I ask myself every single time I start a new one. Will I be satisfied with racing through the main questline? Do I also want to clear all the side quests? Or do I want to honour this game with completing every single thing there is to do and get to that holy 100%? There's a reason that main plus side, and completionist are the three listed stats on how long to beat. These are the three most common points that people call a game completed. Modern games normally have all three of these options, but some only accept the latter. They only accept perfection. The most common game type to use this form of perfection are Collecathons, where the entire purpose of the game is to fill up that completion percentage until there's nothing left to see. Animal Well is one of these games. Those eggs I mentioned, there's 64 of them in total, and each one is its own small puzzle to find across a truly labyrinthian map. But when you first drop into that well and see the amount of empty map surrounding you waiting to be uncovered, you'll be met by one of two feelings. The first is pure joy and excitement at the prospect of having all of this space to discover and collect. The second is overwhelmment, which is a word I checked. Instead of being excited that you have so much to do, you instead have no clue where to start, and as such dread taking that first step. Both of these feelings are totally valid ways of thinking, but only one of them can cripple you so badly that you decide to quit the game before you even really get started. It's like looking up at a mountain as your mind races through the amount of work it's going to take to get to the top. Some people are willing to do that work for the view they get at the end, whereas others would rather stay at home. This form of perfection is the easiest to quantify, but that doesn't always mean it's the easiest one to achieve. Just because you know there are 64 eggs, it doesn't mean you know where they are or how to get them. Instead of it being one big challenge to reach perfection, it's a bunch of little challenges all filling up a bar until you finally reach the summit. As I mentioned earlier, even when these smaller challenges are called optional, they often hold the secrets to the true ending of the games, meaning they're only optional to the point that finishing the story is optional. It's like watching Star Wars, but you don't get to see the Death Star blow up unless you count every stormtrooper. This exacerbates that feeling of dread even further, as now you're not only missing out on that sweet Steam achievement for 100%, you're also missing out on seeing how the story you've sunk hours into really ends. That is unless you just watch the true ending on YouTube, but you wouldn't do that, would you? Trans icon and indie darling Celeste is also a platforming game that also has collectibles. However, these are truly optional as stated at the very beginning of the game. The sole reason to bother collecting any of these strawberries is to impress your friends and get Steam achievements. By contrast, when you're playing Celeste, you never really feel any pressure to collect them all and can instead just focus on progressing through the levels and following the story. You can see everything the game has to offer, witness every plot beat, complete every level, and miss literally nothing but having a different number on the screen. Celeste allows you to have an objectively complete experience without an objectively perfect amount of completion. In other games, perfection isn't needed for any kind of unlock or story beat. Instead you do it purely because it's cool. The Devil May Cry series has been going on for over 20 years, and the one thing that's persisted from the very start alongside the edgy protagonist or demons is the style meter. During combat encounters, every successful attack and combo fills up your style meter, progressing from D to SS, or in the case of Devil May Cry 5, dismal to smoking sexy style. This star meter has no bearing over the game other than the score you get during each encounter and at the end of each level. The plot proceeds the exact same whether you make it past with a D or perfectly achieve triple S in every single encounter. Where Animal Well hangs these obstacles over you as a form of extrinsic motivation, the motivation to get higher ranks in Devil May Cry is completely intrinsic. The bar appears during every single combat encounter, and you can always tell how well you're doing based on the letter on the screen. Even though this has no bearing on the game itself aside from the meaningless number, you constantly feel this pressure that if you are a lower style score, you're somehow playing the game wrong. It almost feels like the game expects you to reach those higher scores, and by falling behind, you're letting it down. Pair this with the soundtrack that accompanies each battle and the final picture becomes a little bit clearer. Each playable character in the game has their own theme song. Every time you enter combat, that character's song will start playing and provide a backing track to your fighting. The longer the combat goes on, the more of the music you hear, and the easiest way to do that is to stay alive and fighting. Your combos are now not only a way to string together the highest style score you can to achieve those high ranks, they're now also instruments in a greater orchestra going hand in hand with the soundtrack. To be clear, what the fuck? To be clear, there is no correlation between how well you're doing and the music. It will play just the same whether you're barely scraping by with a D or getting through every single encounter without so much as taking a single hit. And yet, as each song builds up to an inevitable crescendo, you feel the pressure build to maintain your combo so you're not on your back at the pivotal moment. The game transforms from a fighting spectacle game with a killer soundtrack to almost a rhythm game where you try to build your combos to a crescendo in time with the building of the music. If you pull it off, it's an almost transcendent experience where you feel like you're truly mastering the mechanics of the game for however a brief moment. It's two separate layers of intrinsic motivation coming together to form one true goal where you can claim perfection. The interesting part about this perfection is that there's no set route to it. Now sure, the high ranks are set at specific levels of points within a specific time frame, but there's no set order of moves to gain those points. You can use any combination of attacks, combos, weapons, and abilities that you want. As long as you do enough to get those points, it doesn't really matter. You can reach perfection via an almost unlimited number of paths. The recent Hitman reboot, World of Assassination, takes a similar approach to perfection, with one key difference. Each level is a specific contract, where you're sent into a single map with the goal of taking out one or more targets before making your escape. Within these levels, there's an almost unlimited number of different methods you can use to achieve this. You can assume various disguises and use them to get up close and personal with your targets and take them out behind closed doors. You can wait for them to be exposed and take them out using a well-placed shot, using distractions to cover up your gunfire. Hell, you can just walk straight in there and take them out the moment you lay eyes on them. As long as you take out everyone you have to and make it to an exit, it really does not matter how you do it. To a degree. You see, after each completed mission, you'll be given a score and a rank out of 5 stars. Doing things like being spotted, killing non-targets, and other actions that would leave any sort of trace reduce your score. This means a perfect run sees you slip in and out unnoticed, preferably before anyone realises the targets are dead. The ramifications of this scoring system go beyond just a number on the screen, however. In the world of Hitman, you work for the International Contract Agency, also known simply as the Agency. This conglomerate of contract killers works around the globe taking on the highest profile jobs imaginable and has only survived so long because of their expertise remaining in the shadows. If you complete a mission, all guns blazing, being spotted by numerous people and killing unnecessarily, not only will you be punished with a lower score, but you're also putting the agency at risk of being exposed. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's no system in-game where you eventually get fired if you consistently achieve low scores, but the motivation to remain hidden is there all the same. The game does not demand perfection, but the agency does, giving you this great system where you have the freedom to approach each and every contract however you like, along with the optional pressure to remain a ghost at all times. I said moments ago there are countless ways to complete each contract, and whilst that is technically true, each level has a number of methods to choose from for extra credit. Now sure, you could just shoot both targets, or you could instead push one from a balcony onto the other waiting below to make it all seem like some cruel accident that no one could have seen coming. Obviously you can sneak around and choke them out whilst they're alone, or you could assume a disguise and walk right up to them in front of everyone with no one being the wiser. The game isn't just giving you a set number of methods to achieve perfection, it's making each one its own plotline to find and follow steps to complete. It has successfully gamified perfecting the act of being an assassin using new methods every time, each one more elaborate than the last. The more you play it, the more of these challenges you complete, the higher your level will rise and the more tools you'll have at your disposal. Over time, you won't just perfect the gameplay and master every map, you will gear yourself out to be the most efficient assassin the world has ever known, capable of taking out anyone, anywhere, using anything. You may not need perfection to progress and complete the game, but if you seek it out, you will be rewarded with all the tools, motivation and challenge markers you need to get there. Now, whilst Hitman may have many methods available to you when seeking perfection, the bar always remains in the same place. Factorio goes about perfection in a very different way. In the base game, you're tasked with sending a rocket into space. That is your one and only goal, so the path you take to get there is entirely up to you. One of the main hurdles you'll need to cross to achieve this goal is completing research projects. Each of these projects requires a certain number of a certain kind of research pack. Initially, you'll be making these manually and placing them into the labs yourself to move things along, but this will quickly become infeasible with the rate of consumption and resources required, so eventually you will turn to automation. This will allow you to offload all that crafting onto machines, but you'll still need to work to supply these machines with the right resources and power. Once everything is set up, you'll quickly realise that a single lab takes an extremely long time to research anything, so you'll increase your lab count to speed things along. Doing this also means your science pack production will need to be expanded to accommodate for the increased demand. And doing this, you'll need to make sure that your production of science pack ingredients is also able to keep up with that increased demand. The bar for perfection is ever moving in Factorio. Almost as soon as you finish optimizing one area of the factory, another will rear its head to demand your attention. Achieving perfection in this game is less like filling a percentage bar until everything is complete, and more like spinning plates and going around giving each one an extra push to make sure it doesn't all come tumbling down. Even if you optimize everything and your factory requires no more changes, limited resource deposits in-game will ensure you are constantly expanding to make sure your supply always meets your demand. New long-distance railway networks will change how you approach factory building to accommodate for bulk resource transfers. Logistics and construction robots will allow you to transfer resources and build up your factory at a greatly accelerated rate, provided you have the power and resources to keep them stocked. Perfection will also be different for every single person. Beyond the rate of production and even overall efficiency, people prefer building different styles of factory. Some will prefer the centralized nature of a main bus layout, where all of your resources travel along a central group of belts before being pulled off as and when they're needed. Others may instead prefer the chaotic nature of the spaghetti layout, where everything is built without much pre-planning or consideration to allow for maximum use of space at the cost of low upgradability. My perfect base will look entirely different to yours, and yet they may perform the exact same jobs at the exact same efficiency, so both can be considered equally perfect. Your factories in-game can be theoretically scaled up to infinity, the standard for perfection racing forwards exactly as fast as you're willing to chase it. Ironically, this game that has an ever-changing bar for perfection and many ways to achieve it is almost impossible to maintain for any substantial length of time. There will always be a bottleneck somewhere, and fixing that will inevitably cause issues elsewhere. There is no way to achieve a permanent perfection, so the best you can do is get as close as you can over and over and over again until you're just happy with what you've got. The process of playing Factorio is, in my opinion, a great allegory for almost anything in life. You can try as hard as you can to achieve perfection, but there will almost always be something that's just not quite right. Making these videos can feel a lot like Factorio. Writing them takes me hours, and a large majority of that time is spent going back and forth over previous work to see if it's good enough, removing excess here or adding more context there. In the edit, there's endless little changes I feel I could make to improve each section, and I have to decide which are worth the effort and will be genuine improvements, and which are just things that might be nice but ultimately unnecessary. Thumbnails, titling, line delivery, everything that goes into a video is in some way imperfect. I know that. By the way, this isn't me complaining. I love making these videos, and those little unnecessary details are almost always some of my favourite parts. I'm just using my own, for lack of a less obnoxious term, creative process as an example of something where perfection seems impossible, because it is. But just because it's impossible to achieve, it doesn't mean you shouldn't even try. In games, that pressure to get the perfect run right out the gate on your first try can be crippling and put you off playing the game altogether. Just the same, opening up a Google Doc and seeing that blank page looking back at you, it can be enough to sicken some people off writing anything at all. Something I've found that helps me get past this initial block is to just start writing something. I can feel the critical part of my brain screaming at me that I'm doing a terrible job, but by pushing through and writing something, I'm no longer looking at a blank page and I'm making progress no matter how small. Remember, there is no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting. So just start writing something and fix it later. I wrote an entire other intro for this video that went over the different definitions and types of perfection, and it read like a high school entomology worksheet. Your first go at anything will almost always be bad, whether that's playing a new game, writing, or hell, even just being yourself. Do you have any idea how much more annoying I was as a kid? The important thing isn't to aim for perfection on your first try, or even to work towards it for your entire life to achieve it. It's to know you have to start somewhere and enjoy the ride from where you started to where you end up. Don't be afraid to start anything, whether that's a game, some kind of project, or, like I said, just being yourself. Don't feel the need to aim for some arbitrary perfection if you don't want to. Just do whatever makes you happy, and in the end it'll be hard to be mad at what you've got, whether that's a 53% overall completion or an overly long yap video about perfection in video games.
Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. I'm really excited about this year, and I want to make sure that these videos come out with a little bit more regularity than they did last year. I'm still not going to post them until I'm happy with them and I feel like they're ready to go out, so I don't want to rush anything. But I'm going to focus a lot more on them now that the backlog is relegated to the yearly catch-up. Speaking of a yearly catch-up, this channel isn't even a year old yet, and it has already crossed the line of YouTube monetization, so get ready for me to be a total sellout on literally any single product that I can. All jokes aside, I really cannot thank you enough for your support on these videos and this channel. It really does mean the world to me, because I really love making these videos. They're very weird and possibly strange and a little bit cringe sometimes, but I don't know, I quite like making them, so I hope you enjoy watching them. However, on the topic of selling out and making content, I've actually made a separate companion video for this video where I go over the initial version of the script and where I made changes, what stuff I took out, why I decided to take out. I'm kind of going to my process a little bit, if you could call it that. A little bit cringe to call it a process, but it is what it is. As well as this video and this script, I go through some of my older videos. I know the channel's only a year old, but you know, you look back on anything and you can find things to point out of it. So I'm going to look back through some of my old videos, review those. What would I change now? What would I leave in? What did I think worked? What did I think don't? A little bit more about my process. If you're interested in that kind of thing, then you can check that video out by becoming a member on the channel for just £1. I mean, it's £1 a month, but you can just do it for £1 to see the video and then unsubscribe if you really want. Like, that's fine. I'm not complaining. I am experimenting with these companion videos to see what you guys think, if you enjoy, if that's something you want to see more of. So if you do decide to check it out, be sure to let me know what you think, and I'd love to make some more. Anyway, enough begging for money. It's probably time to wrap this one up. So thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. As a little tease for the next one, I'm just finishing off playing Silent Hill 2. So leave a comment down below on the topic that you think I'm going to cover in the next video. It's going to be a real cheerful one, let me tell you. Like the video if you did, love yourself, no matter what. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.